We've received quite a bit of interest in my free to be workshop. So to that effect, beneath this video is a link that will give you a description for the workshop. And we've also included a special discount. So if that's something you would be interested in, I would invite you to click that link, and I hope that you would find the course to be quite beneficial. As you study about narcissism, one of the things that you can ask yourself is, can these people ever change or make an adjustment? And one of the things that in my over 40 years of working in the field of psychotherapy, one of the things that I've determined is there are some people that try as hard as you may, you can't get them to that place of change and adjustment. It's simply not in them. You see, narcissists have such a strong need to be in control, and they absolutely don't want to make themselves vulnerable. They have a shield around themselves, so they don't want anybody to penetrate. They want to be the one that's calling the shot. They're self-enamored that when the time comes to say, we need to make some adjustments here, it's like, I don't need to. I'm not going to. I have to stay in my power position here. And as a result, there are certain essential skills that are required for relationship success that they simply do not master. They can't come to terms with it. I want to go through 4 of those essential skills that are part of relationship success. And I want to kind of walk you through them and let you see how narcissists manage it. And then I've got some questions that I want to ask of you regarding your thinking in that same regard. Now, the first skill that we can see that narcissists have a great difficulty with is the skill of conflict management, or we might even say more specifically, anger management. In another video, I mentioned one of the primary ways that you can determine if an individual is strongly narcissistic or not is watch the way they handle conflict. And by the way, conflict is going to be inevitable. It just simply happens. You and I are not going to think the same. We're not going to have the same way of looking at projects and things of that nature. And so when conflict happens, it's time for us to say, well, why don't we put our heads together? I'll share my thoughts with you. You share your thoughts with me, and we'll see if we can find some good place in the middle ground and move forward and proceed. Instead, when narcissists are in conflict with you, they're thinking one thing, and that is, I have to find the place of power. I have to be the one that has the final word. And as a result, they tend to go into one of 2 primarily dysfunctional forms of anger. They'll either become openly aggressive, and they can be very harsh and mean-spirited in the way that they communicate, and under no uncertain terms that you're on their bad list. Or they can go into the passive-aggressive mode, and they can do all these games of procrastination and promising to do things and that they don't, or they give you the silent treatment and they are evasive and things like that. Those are their forms of communicating anger. Either way, the bottom line is they build resentment in other individuals. They carry resentment on the inside of themselves, and they live with a great deal of contempt because their conflict resolution skills are simply non-existent, and the net result is they have this rotten emotion that remains on the inside of them. Does that sound very familiar to you? I strongly suspect that if you live with a narcissist, you're thinking, oh yeah, I've had that one before. Well, a second skill that they have great difficulty with, and that is examining their own mistakes or miscalculations or deficiencies. Now, I'd like to stay here right in front of you and say, I don't make mistakes. I'd like to be able to say that. But if you hang out with me long enough, you're going to find out, well, I do make mistakes, just as you do, just as anyone else does. It's just part of our humanity. And what we want to do is we want to go inside and ask, so what does this tell me about me when there's some sort of an error? You remember the old saying from Socrates, an unexamined life is a life not worth living. I'm not going to argue with Socrates. I mean, that's a pretty smart fellow. And so we want to examine ourselves. If there's a strain, if there's a difficulty, let me figure out, I've done this before, and I want to know why I do certain things as I do so that I can make adjustments and make improvements. Instead, with a narcissist, they can't examine themselves because their false self won't allow them to do so. Let's keep in mind that very early in life, they determined that being open about their humanity and all was a very risky thing. They don't trust people at all. And so they try to create this false shield that says, I'm above that stuff. I don't need to examine my mistakes because my mistakes aren't as bad as yours. And so instead they deflect and they blame and do the blame shifting and boomerang communication. They can't examine themselves. They show a very low level of insight and personal awareness. A third essential skill that they never do come to terms with, and that is, it's the skill of seeing the humanity in other individuals. One of the worst things that we can say about narcissists as they engage with people is they dehumanize other individuals. It's like they don't want to get inside and grapple with that person's humanity. If somebody's struggling, or if they have some history that's rather awkward, or if they are too other and they cause you to have to stretch, the narcissist is like, you're just an idiot. And so they just can pass blanket judgments on other individuals, as opposed to saying, let me get inside there with you and let me find out who you are. What do you feel and what's your backstory? I want to know you. When other individuals struggle, narcissists is like, I don't do struggle. I don't like that. That's your weakness. And if I get down there, then that means I'm getting into the field of weakness, and I can't do that. And as a result, they can be derisive. They'll talk over individuals. They'll tell people what to do, anything to make them be something other than what they are, which is human. They have virtually zero questions about who you are and what's going on inside. They just don't care because, you see, it makes them feel uncomfortable. It's awkward for them. And going into that space of trying to learn the feelings and needs of others, it's like, not going to do it, don't care to do it, and it's not going to happen. And then a fourth life skill that they simply can't come to terms with is the skill of strategizing relational success. Let me give you an illustration. Let's suppose that you're going to build a house and you say, well, let's see, we just need to get some stuff out there and get that house up. Well, it's a whole lot more detailed than that, isn't it? When you're building a house, there are all sorts of plans that you have to do. You have to start with your game plan on paper, and then you have to order all the different parts and materials and all, and then there's a certain order that you go about doing that. Doing something like building a house requires strategizing. Well, in the same way as we interact, whether it's in our world of work or in our relationships or our businesses and elsewhere, we need to have strategies about who we are and where we're going. There's a term that I like to use. I call it the training of emotional competence. All through life, we need to be looking at what does work and what does not work. And why do we do things the way that we do? And why should I change gears over here with this person and then use a different tactic over here? There's all sorts of strategies that we want to maintain. Instead, narcissists just complain. They won't compromise. They just tell people, here's what you need to do. They don't want to strategize. They don't want to plan things out. They're not flexible. They require you to change, but they won't change themselves. They're not teachable. So when you look at those basics that I'm talking about, and then we go back, well, can these people make adjustments and change? It's like, well, there are all sorts of things. If you go into those spaces, you can learn how to make healthy choices. You can learn how to set aside the things that don't work and go towards the things that do. But narcissists, it's like, I don't need to do that. I don't want to do that. Now, one of the things that I want to happen on the inside of you as we examine these kind of things, I want you to bring that thinking back to yourself. Well, do I ever go in that same direction? Well, there's some questions that I want you to ask of yourself so that you don't follow suit with that narcissistic bent. Ponder these, will you? For example, I want you to ask, am I willing to learn? Can I admit my own need to make adjustments? I hope the answer would be yes. Or when I'm in conflict, what person shows up? Do I see myself as being a bridge builder? I hope so. Or another question, am I willing to lay down my egotism in favor of modesty. That's part of the equation, because if you bring a huge ego, you're not going to be a good learner. Or another question, do I like to listen? Do I make the effort to truly try to understand other individuals? That would be a skill worthy of following through. Or another, when others are dysfunctional, can I keep my wits about me? Narcissists are highly codependent, but I don't need to be the kind of person that plays off of other individuals. Do I have a well-conceived idea of who I am? By the way, that's the beginning of healthy boundaries. Another question, do I derive ultimate strength from decency as opposed to dominance? Where's your strength come from? Or are my efforts to coordinate driven by a conscientious mindset? I'm hoping that rather than saying we're going to coordinate, you're going to do what I tell you to do, I hope there's a conscientiousness that says we need to figure out how to harmonize. Or when I'm invalidated, can I nonetheless stand upon my principles anyway? Do I seek the things that are fair? Narcissists operate with a very closed mind. They don't really have a willingness to seek insight. But people who are on Team Healthy operate with an awakened mind and an ongoing curiosity, a curiosity about others, a curiosity about themselves. So I'm kind of hoping that in understanding this, you can say, I'm signing up for Team Healthy. I'm sorry that those other individuals don't have that skill set, but I'm going to live into what I know is wisest and best. Watch how narcissists do things, and instead of saying, man, I just can't stand that, which of course you're going to feel that way, use your awarenesses as an insight for your own personal growth. Now, I do hope that you get good insight from a video such as this, and if you've not already done so, I would encourage you to go beneath this video and hit that subscribe button, and that means we'll be able to get more videos to you. In addition, we have an email list, and if you'd like, we encourage you to join that so that we can let you know what kind of things we have going on and extra articles. If you have a need for counseling, and many of you, I know that you've decided, yeah, I'd like to try to get counseling. If you have someone in your immediate area, I would encourage you to take advantage of that. If you don't have that availability, then we've vetted a group that's a sponsor of ours now that can provide online counseling. We have a link below where you can go to their website and get the help that you would need there. And if that's the case, I'd strongly encourage you to do so. We also have my extensive video workshop, Free to Be, how to respond to the controllers in your life. And it's kind of like taking an online class. And if that's something you're interested in, we have the link there below as well. We have links to my books and other workshops, lots of resources there. Also, survivingnarcissism.tv, drlescarter.com. Just because a narcissist doesn't want to have that kind of awareness and growth and adjustment doesn't mean that you have to follow their lead. Be a leader, and in being a leader, establish what you know to be wisest and best, and it's your way of letting it be known. I stand for goodness, and I can't allow somebody who's a troubled soul to set my pace. I'm going into a life that is grounded in peace and dignity and respect. That's who I am.